How's it going, everybody? My name is Ryan, aka Blackbeard TCG, and in this video you are going to see some gameplay against my Edward Newgate and Sakazuki decks, both of my decks that I have showcased on this channel. And if you haven't seen them yet, please go ahead and check them out. I definitely recommend you do so. There is a misplay that is made towards the end of this game, and I do talk about it at the end. Ultimately, could it have changed things? I think so. But at the end of the day, this video is just for entertainment purposes, just for you guys to enjoy. If you guys have any suggestions in terms of what I can do for either of the builds or how either of the builds should play, please, by all means, let me know in the comment section below. For me, I'm extremely humble and I love to hear all the feedback, both positive and negative. And anytime anyone has suggestions, especially when it comes to deck building, I am all ears, because at the end of the day, I just want to get better. But without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy the gameplay. And so the match begins with Akainu only getting 1 Dawn, and with no turn 1 play, passes it over to Whitebeard. 2 Dawn and draws 1 card since going second, and then decides to tap 1 Dawn in order to place 2020 Chopper to get a blocker on board. Whitebeard's character effect is self-harm at the end of turn, adding 1 life to hand. Passing it back over to Akainu, getting 2 Dawn, now sitting at 3 Dawn, and deciding to attach all 3 Dawn to Akainu to make him 8k, swinging at Whitebeard and blocking with 2020 Chopper. Remember, with Whitebeard, you want to take no damage if possible in the early game. Refresh, adding 2 Dawn, passing it back over to Whitebeard with 4 Dawn now, able to draw into the Whitebeard Pirates character card, event card, looking at the top 5 cards of the deck, and ultimately deciding to take Moby Dick stage card, adding it to hand. The rest of the cards will go to the bottom of the deck. Now, with 3 Dawn remaining, decides to tap 2 to get another blocker on board. Barto hits the field. Edward Newgate now swinging, attaching 1 Dawn, making him 7,000 power, going for leader, which will be a successful hit. Akainu now down to 4 life, but at the end of the turn, Whitebeard will also self-harm and add 1 life to hand. Refresh and add 2 Dawn. Now sitting at 5 Dawn for the Akainu player, and deciding to tap forward to bring out Kuzan. Kuzan on play, getting to draw 1, drawing into the Sengoku, attaching 1 Dawn into Sakazuki, and Sakazuki attacking to Whitebeard. Does Whitebeard decide to take the hit? No, decides to block with Nico Robin for 1k power, attack unsuccessful, and then it'll go back over to the Whitebeard player. Refresh, 2 Dawn, draw, start the turn. Decides to tap 2 to get Moby Dick online, stage card that you want to have early so you don't have to ideally play it late. Tap 1 for 20 Chopper, get another block on board. Tap 2 for Barto, another block on board, for a total of 3 blockers. Attaching 1 Dawn to leader, Edward Newgate, making him 7,000 power, and deciding to go for face. Sakazuki decides to take the hit, knocking him down to 3 life. End of turn, adding 1 card from life to hand and passing it back over to Akainu. With the turn passing back to Akainu, both of them at 3 life, Akainu has a decent amount of Dawn to finally start really playing the game. Of course, there's Sengoku, Morgan, and 4-drop Kuzan all in hand, and a good play here would be to play the Sengoku so that way he could start pressuring Whitebeard's life, and then that way he has to commit to playing some cards in hand in order to block, or use his blockers on board so when it gets later on into the game, he won't have to deal with them. So Sengoku hits the board, and the remaining 2 Dawn are attached to Sakazuki as he goes to swing, but is blocked by the 2020 Chopper as expected, but you have to get those blockers off board some way, somehow. Turn passes back over to Whitebeard, refresh, 2 Dawn, and it's almost time for the Whitebeard character card. But until then, still gotta play defensively. So what is the game plan? Tapping 1 to get 2020 Chopper on board, having 3 blockers on board once again, and now having the ability to go aggressive with no other plays in hand, loading up the Dawn on the Whitebeard leader, going to swing for face with no blocker on the side of Sakazuki. It's going to be able to either commit a lot of cards from his hand and get that out of his hand, or he's going to take the damage. And of course, in this situation, Akainu decides to take the hit, goes down to 2 life, but you have to remember, at the end of the turn, Edward Newgate will also take 1 life due to self-harm, adding 1 card to hand. Both players at 2 life, and the turn passes back over to Sakazuki. Refresh, 2 Dawn, and just 1 Dawn away from being able to play the 10-drop Kuzan. What does Akainu decide to do here? Again, a ton of Dawn to play with, and it's probably best to play a little bit smart, knowing and anticipating that a 9-drop Whitebeard is going to hit the board. So tapping 4 for Kuzan, Kuzan on play, drawing 1 card, getting Great Eruption, And now, deciding, do you want to swing with your Sengoku, because now you can threaten that. Sengoku having a base power of 6,000 is definitely something that Akainu can do here, and that's exactly what he decides to do, swinging into the leader, being blocked by 2020 Chopper, of course not wanting to take damage, but giving -4 to Barto. With Barto at -4, effectively having 0 costs, using our leader ability to pop it to have 1 less blocker on board, and safely passing the turn back over, leaving 2 open Dawn for the events in hand. Passing it back over to Whitebeard, refresh, and now we have 10 Dawn, and you know what's coming. Tapping 9 to bring out Edward Newgate, 9 drop, 10,000 power, effectively giving your leader 2,000 power, making him 8,000 and swinging at Akainu. Now of course, with 8,000 power, when only 2 life left, you're getting into lethal territory. Akainu going ahead and committing cards in hand in order to block. We have the Tashigi that's 2k, Akainu that's 1k, and Sengoku that's 1k for a total of 4k counter, making Sakazuki 9k, being able to make the attack unsuccessful. At the end of the turn, Whitebeard will take no life due to self-harm thanks to the character card ability of Whitebeard. The turn passes back, again, 10 Dawn to work with for Sakazuki. What is the play now? Now, although Kuzan can be played here, it's not the smart play considering that Whitebeard will only go down to a cost of 4, meaning that he can't be popped. With the Whitebeard leader on the other side being 8k due to the character ability, attaching 2 Dawn to Sengoku to be 8k, and using Sengoku's ability to lower Whitebeard character cards cost all the way from 9 down to 5. Not wanting to take damage, Whitebeard discards Vista, a 1k counter, to not take any damage and make the attack unsuccessful. But now, Whitebeard character card is in pop range. By tapping 6, playing Sakazuki, on play, popping one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less, Whitebeard didn't even stand a chance. Now with only 1 more blocker on board, with just having the Barto, deciding to pass a turn, back over to Whitebeard, refresh, draw for turn. Now, going ahead and tapping 7, playing Portgas D Ace. When Portgas D Ace is on the field, giving 2 of your opponent's characters -3,000, and now also having Rush. Attaching 1 Dawn to Edward Newgate, Whitebeard leader, and swinging into face, being 7,000 power for Sakazuki, trying to force a block. Now, remember, there was 2 Dawn open. Impact Wave can now be live by tapping 2, activating Impact Wave to not take any damage, and Impact Wave destroying 1 card with a cost of 4 or less, getting rid of the enemy Barto. No blockers on board now. Although the attack is unsuccessful, with Portgas D Ace having Rush and wanting to keep on the aggression, Ace will swing into the leader, 7,000 power, Sakazuki opting to take the hit, and now sitting at 1 life. Whitebeard, of course, here is going to self-harm and take 1 life, but remember, now Moby Dick is live, meaning that Whitebeard and all of his characters are all going to have plus 2,000 power when it comes back to his turn. Now here's where the misplay happens and butting off a little bit more than you could chew. Obviously I talked about that shiny Kuzan wanting to play that, but very quickly realizing the order of operations, because if you want to pop that Portgas D Ace, then of course you're going to want to attack with Sengoku first in order to minus Portgas D Ace, so that way when Kuzan hits the field, he is now a cost of 0, and then he gets popped by the Kuzan. So attacking with Sengoku into leader, forcing a blocker, discarding the Nico Robin, and then now going ahead and playing the Kuzan. And of course, this could be a misplay because it is overextending, and not having any Dawn and not having any defense passing back is quite unfortunate. Because now going on the offensive end, having no Dawn, not being able to swing with your leader because Whitebeard is 6k, the only other character you can swing with is Akainu character card being 7k. And now remember, Whitebeard had 2 Dawn open very easily, having defensive cards in hand like Radical Laser Beam as well as Guard Point, being able to easily successfully block that attack, and then the turn will get passed back over to Whitebeard. Refresh, draw for turn. And now, how can Whitebeard win here? Well, it's very, very situational, but it can happen. Remember, with Moby Dick live, giving 2,000 power, Whitebeard is effectively 8k, attaching 3 Dawn, 4 Dawn, making him 12k, and remember, no blocker board for Akainu, no, only attaching 3 Dawn. making it 11k. Swinging into leader, is there enough for 11k to block in hand? No, so taking one hit. Now, the new card that was revealed, Jozu. If you guys don't know what Jozu does, is that he actually gets rush if you have less than 2 life when you attach 1 Dawn to him, making him 5k, but Moby Dick makes him 7k, attaching another 2 Dawn, making him 9k, and unfortunately, not having enough to get to 10k on defense. That is the end of the game for the Akainu player. So here's a screenshot of the game state before the misplay of tapping everything out and wanting to drop Kuzan. I know it's very attractive to do so, but in this situation here where you have overwhelming state of the board because you have 4 characters on board, your opponent has no blockers. Of course they have the 2 Dawn active, and any player can assume that, you know, it could be a bait, but obviously you're going to want to try to attack into that knowing that they will have events active. With red, you can assume that there's guard points, you can assume that there's radical beam, but you don't know for certain. But you could still play conservatively. So again, if you want to play more defensive, you can play Corazon 2-drop, and then also you have your impact wave as well in hand, as well as Morgan and Sengoku. So with Morgan, Sengoku, and impact wave, you have an effective 6k counter of power that you can add to your leader, which is going to be nice on the defensive end, along with Corazon being a blocker. So you have that, but then if you want to go offensive and end the game, of course you could try to bait out a counter by just swinging with Sengoku first, being 6k. Your opponent's going to have to discard at least 1 card from hand, and then of course you have 10 Dawn to play with, right? So say you attach 3 Dawn to your Kuzan, right? Kuzan's now 8k, your opponent's going to have to commit 2 cards in order to block, or they're going to have to use an event, right? Say if that attack is successfully blocked, or if they successfully use an event like guard point, for example, well then you still have 7 more Dawn to play with. Attach another 3 Dawn to your other Kuzan and do the same thing, right? See if they can block that. Then you still have 2 more attacks. You still have your leader, and then you still have your character Akainu. You have both, right? So you could try to end the game that way. Basically, all of those options would have been better than completely tapping out and just playing Kuzan and just being like, okay, like, pass it back over to you, right? Of course, obviously, the opponent having Jozu or whatever, like, you know, it's a card game. They could have had it, they could have not. But, and of course, obviously, if you're facing blue, if you're facing green, if you're facing purple or whatever, and you're in this type of game state, they're not going to have rush, right? But going up against red, you have to expect them to have rush, right? Like, what if they're playing the rush Luffy and it turns back to them, they drew into it, boom. Or what if they have another Porcos D ace? They just play that and now they have a 9k ace that they can swing with right away, right? So again, it just comes back to knowing what your opponent can do, playing smart, playing conservatively, and not blowing your load too quick. But overall, I had a ton of fun making this video. I had a ton of fun piloting both decks. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.